Welcome back, everyone, to Coach to You. I'm your host, Coach Regina, and I'm back with another video. On today's podcast episode, we will be discussing rebuilding inner trust. It is going to be the most hardest topic I have to talk about because it discusses the importance of healing from self doubt, learning from mistakes, or experiencing setbacks due to trauma. Okay? So I want you to stay with me to the end of the video because it's going to really have some good information to help you learn to rebuild inner trust on your own. Before I get started, let me go ahead and give my legal disclaimer. Although I'm a student of psychology, I am not a licensed health professional. All content and information on this channel stems from my own personal experience and extensive research and is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered professional medical advice. If you feel you have a mental health condition, seek the guidance of a medical professional. All right, let's go ahead and get started, you guys. So, rebuilding inner trust, okay? When we look at life and we find ourselves experiencing, setbacks, even daily life in general, right? One of the things that you have been, what you may realize is that where you have been through something and you realize I should have trusted my gut. After so many times, what happens is it may become hard for you to trust yourself. People recovering from burnout, bad relationships, or failure begin to often feel disjointed from themselves because trauma does cause fragmentation, right? Often this can make you experience self-doubt, uh, fear of commitment, and then those little bit of moments make you feel like you don't trust yourself. But the truth is, inner trust comes from small daily commitments. When people recovering from burnout and bad relationships or failure, it is not a sign that you have done something wrong. It is an opportunity for you to learn from the experience and recognize that you have an instinct on inside of you. And ignoring your gut instinct oftentimes is the problem. So basically, when you recognize that you have been through something such as you feeling low self-esteem from a breakup, and you knew that this person may have, they had like signs that they were not good, right? But you decided to just jump in and go head on. This opens you up to a whirlwind of experiences, and oftentimes it makes you believe that you're not capable of making decisions in the future. So, what does inner trust look like? Indecision, people pleasing, overthinking, ruminating thoughts. But oftentimes it comes from what we have experienced in past times with individuals. People gaslighting you, making you feel invalid, making you feel like you're not worthy and different things like that. The truth of the matter is rebuilding inner trust after these type of experiences is a daily commitment to yourself. It is an opportunity to honor your boundaries little bit by little bit. As I mentioned earlier, small increments of saying no to others and saying yes to your own peace. Okay? Um, Deciding that today is going to be a day where, you know what, I'm just going to take time for myself versus driving everybody around just because they ask you and you have a car. Okay? So, where in your life do you feel like you may have been outsourcing your decisions to others? Where you have not taken that time, as I mentioned, for your own inner peace. Because again, this is where rebuilding inner trust begins to go downhill because at the end of the day, we all need opportunities for ourselves. Okay? I know that in my own life, I've been through situations where I had to make a decision, but I didn't feel like I was ready to make the decision. And rather than recognizing what indecision felt like, I would sit and allow the person continue to rehearse what they feel like I should do in my mind. And that ultimately had become my decision. Have you ever felt like that? Like where you felt like you couldn't trust your own judgment? Over time, when depending on who that person is in your life, their voice becomes the loudest. You begin to lean to that voice and lose faith in your own self. This is the sneaky way that self-doubt shows up. It's those little moments where you recognize I should have just taken time to just, honor my own intuition or my own gut, like an instinct, like I mentioned earlier, right? Everybody has an opportunity to grow. Trust, love, inner peace, self worth is about taking tiny commitments and then utilizing consistency as a means to continue in your own progress in life. Okay? And I'm going to break that down a little bit, right? When I found myself recognizing that I was not following my own instinct and I was allowing other people's state of being to dictate how I move and navigate a circumstance, it was only after the fact that I realized I should have followed my gut instinct. And you heard me say that a couple of times because typically that's how it shows up. You are not without your own inner guidance. But over time, as I mentioned earlier, when you go through different life's experiences, you begin to experience a downward trajectory where you lose confidence and trust in your own inner guidance and your ability to make decisions. Add this what I mentioned to you earlier about the fragmentation of trauma, that in itself can be difficult. When we discuss rebuilding inner trust and taking small steps, I mentioned to you is transitioning from I have to do this now to I believe that things will work out, or I'll cross that road when it gets there. Doubt, rumination, criticism, anxiety, and fear are experiences from the lower self, okay? But your higher self, it feels more connecting. It feels more, you can do this. Trust yourself. Take time to think things through. When you feel that rush and that pull at you, oftentimes that is coming from your lower self. It is the egoic tendencies of utilizing your inner fear of not getting things right to prove a point that maybe the world is not safe, or maybe you can't trust people, or maybe you can't trust yourself, etc. The truth of the matter is those are old programs. There are scripts that are running in the background of your subconscious that oftentimes become unacknowledgeable, and over time they be the first go-to when your sense of safety is being threatened. And that's the part that you have to pay attention to. But the only way you can do that is when you recognize what is lying within your dormant within your subconscious. I mentioned earlier, doubt, fear, anxiety, rumination, criticism, and things like that. These are old behavior patterns. But if you have been doing the inner work to heal yourself, to rebuild inner trust, these are actually just echoes from that old blueprint. When you learn to trust yourself by taking those small steps that I mentioned earlier, saying no when you mean it, saying yes to your own inner peace, avoiding the people pleasing and the need for validation from others, is the vital portion of the transitioning to rebuilding inner trust. It's not an overnight path. You have to realize that these ingrained patterns that I discussed earlier, they have been there for a long time. And you choosing one instance of speaking up for yourself is only half the battle. Consistency is where things really become the gatekeeper for the other portion of yourself that is more rewarding. Calm, peace, trust, acceptance, willingness. Okay? But it's something that you can do. I understand that life can really be difficult when you feel the weight and pressures of the world on you. As I mentioned earlier, people gaslighting you, past failures constantly echoing, and societal pressures can often make you feel like you have to do what everyone wants you to do. But true inner peace and rebuilding trust comes from recognizing that you are your own sovereignty, and that over time you can take those steps to rebuild your inner trust regardless of what you have been through. Neuroplasticity tells us that the brain is very adept at rewiring itself, especially after trauma. The more new information that you feed it, the more it will begin to find novel opportunities to utilize that information to find its way of intricacy in terms of being able to say, you know what, I can't trust myself. And over and over again, you will find opportunities to see that you can trust yourself versus feeding the old pattern of self-doubt, trauma, fear, and anxiety that your brain will also find things to validate that belief as well. So you have to weigh it here. You have to ask yourself, which one do you want? For me, I can honestly tell you that it feels good on the other side of the spectrum. No, I don't have a lot of people, calling my phone, and I'm not involved in a whole bunch of different relationships, but I'm at peace with my life. And over time, as you go from your seasonal points that where life is causing you to evolve at, you will begin to see too that you don't need a whole bunch of people around you. Or maybe you do, but it's a part of your journey and your life's purpose. Either way it goes, rebuilding inner trust is a decision that one must make, and it requires courage. But sometimes you have to know that it's very lonely on the other side of that. Everybody's not going to approve when you decide to say no. Everybody's not going to approve when you realize that you don't need their validation. Everybody is not going to approve when you begin to tell them that you can't do the things that you used to do, such as listening to drama, being their dumping ground for their own emotional burdens and things of that nature. But it's okay. As you become the version of yourself that you truly can love, trust, and admire, you now change the trajectory of your own emotional frequency. And in that, you invite rewarding relationships, beautiful experiences, and a life that you are grateful and proud to be a part of. I want to thank you if you stayed with me to the end of this video. My name is Coach Regina. Like and subscribe to my channel. Share this video with someone who you feel like need help rebuilding their own inner trust. Thank you. Stay tuned.